Hello, and welcome to another discomfortable episode of We Only Look Thin. Or wait, no, We Only Look Thin. There we go. Hi, I'm Katherine Weigel. I am one of your hosts. I am, what am I? I've lost, sorry. You totally, okay, Donald started it out with a goofy sound, so I'm a little discombobulated.
Yeah.
I will recombobulate and tell you that I have lost about 120 pounds and kept it off for over 6 years. I am a Tiny Habit certified coach. I'm a Thrive Global certified coach. I am happily married to my co-host.
Very
happily married to my combobulated co-host,
Donald Weigel. Even though you sometimes make me very discomfortable.
Oh, we'll get to discomfortableness.
Discomfortableness. I am also one of the hosts of this show. I am extraordinarily happily married to Katherine Weigel, and we have lost, I've lost about 100 pounds. I kept it off for something like 6 years, and I'm here to talk about it. Hello.
Hi. Today we are moving into Part 3 of Habit Elementary.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think we had come up with the titles.
Initially
when we recorded the other two parts of this, but
so
we are on Part 3 of Habit Elementary, and this is a series.
We're making the grade.
We are
making the grade and our way up the ladder of elementariness.
Yeah,
and up pyramids and various things.
Yeah, this is a series. We think it will be 5 parts long at this point, but don't hold us to it. And we are essentially basically coming up with a series on how to get yourself to your goal, the sort of Cliff's Notes version of that, and what to do when you are very much just starting out, all the way through till maintenance, and how to go up the different levels. And we talked about before Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how you need to satisfy your needs at the bottom of the pyramid. If you want to know more about Maslow and his hierarchy, there's the internet, or go back and listen to an earlier episode. We talked a lot more about it. But in the first part of this series, we talked about you're overwhelmed, you want to do something, but you just don't know what to do. And we talked about adding things to your life. Rather than thinking about, trying to take away a bunch of things out of your life, think about what you can add. And then the part 2 was about starting to really build structure into your life. And that was about, you're not necessarily tracking calories yet, because I know that's hard for a lot of people, but you are starting to, pre-decide what you're eating. You're starting to write down what you've eaten, not tracking calories, but getting the habit of keeping track of what you've had, and then adding purposeful movement into your life. And in each of these episodes, we've used the structure of talking about, at the various stages, mindset, the scale, food, and movement. And now we're moving to the 3rd level of the pyramid. Imagine that you're Q Bert, jumping up and down. Q Bert was an awesome video game from the 80s, question mark?
And a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon that had a theme song that I know some of.
Really?
Yeah, Q Bert, the amazing cube.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Q Bert, he's our friend.
Wow, I love it.
I don't remember why, but yeah,
I need to look that up on YouTube. It's probably on there. But I played the video game a decent amount on our home system. Anyway, he jumped up and down a pyramid, turning blocks different colors, and then like snakes and things would come and try to kill him.
Oh, I forgot about the snakes.
And so I'm just coming up with this analogy on the fly. Like, you can think of this as your Q Bert, and you're trying to jump up the pyramid, and there's like snakes coming at you, and Katherine and I are there to like help you.
But that's actually a really good analogy. Like, so here is the thing with the pyramid. It is not a one-way destination. It is, depending on what snakes are chasing you, which is kind of like appropriate, because I think this is going to come out maybe around St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
There were like snakes
something like
in
that.
Ireland and stuff. But anyway, that's an analogy. But the thing about this pyramid is that it's not just the basics all the way to Nirvana in One Direction. It is, wait, Nirvana and One Direction are both bands. So anyway, never mind. Or Ace of Base, I guess, is the bottom one. Anyway,
oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
Look, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. I don't know why I said that. But the thing with our joint ventures is that there are going to be times when we feel like we're so close to the top and we're like almost at our goal and we think it's smooth sailing from now on. And then we have a setback.
Yeah.
And guess what? It doesn't mean that we're failures. It doesn't mean that it was just never meant to be. It means we have the opportunity to go back to a lower level
100%.
and kind of set the basics again. So even if literal snakes are chasing you, a la Q Bert, or figurative setbacks are happening, you can always go back to a lower level and know that it is not a failure. It is just an opportunity to reassess where you are. So we're today going to focus on sort of that level 3, which is sort of like the middle ground. You can go up, you can go down. But at this point, you've kind of got those basics, 1s and 2s, the 1 and 2 levels taken care of. And now the rubber is hitting the snake road.
Yes, the snake road. So to mix our metaphors a bit, the first 2 episodes were sort of like the on-ramp episodes.
Ooh, nice.
And now you're on the highway, like where the rubber is really meeting the road, as you said, the snake road. And you're really going to, get your habits going to a point where they're really going to move the needle, and you're forming your plan. And by plan, I don't mean diet. I don't mean the thing you're going to go on for a while and stop. I mean the plan that is going to get you to your goal weight and then keep you at your goal weight for theoretically the rest of your life.
Right. And part of that is really looking at the past, what is behind us, with all of the maybe well-intentioned plans that you followed in the past that maybe you didn't stick with. And a lot of times we think like, 2 different things. One, if I could just go back to doing Atkins before like I did, then I'll be able to lose weight again. But there was a reason that you might have stopped doing a plan.
Right.
So we're going to ask you to really think about your history. And is there a plan that you did before that you liked, but maybe stopped? Why did you do that? And it's really important, especially like this is definitely something that I did. I was so discouraged, from failed attempts and gaining and losing over and over and over again. But I never took the time to say, like, what if I did it differently this time?
Right.
What didn't work then? And how could I adapt? And this is the part where we actually need to put in some effort, which is a good thing to really think about what we did in the past and how to move forward.
Yeah. And look, I kept making the same mistakes over and over again. I would do Atkins for a while, which I believe is exactly the same as keto or pretty close. I would do that and I would lose some weight. And then as soon as I started eating carbs again, the weight would come back. And I would think that for some reason that the new time it was going to be better. Like
right.
that, I would be on it for long enough that I would then get fixed and then I could, go back to eating whatever I want. And it never worked out that way. So think about why you stopped doing a plan before. And did it really work for you? And should you try something different this time?
Right. So we're going to go through a few mindset things that you can consider when really looking at the way you used to see your weight loss plan or your goals. And in this part of the joint venture, really looking at ways you can adapt to that. So the first one is, in the past, we used to let our plans rule us. We thought we had to be 100% compliant in order to reach our goals.
Yeah.
And now we think about adaptability, which is so much more empowering, and it takes the onus off of a plan to like rule your life, and makes it so that you actually think about your actual life and what you can make work for you. So now we're thinking, instead of compliance, we're thinking about adaptability.
Yeah, and just to tag on to that idea, I used to do this thing all the time where I would go on a plan, and if something came up, some unexpected meal or day of meals, and I went off of the plan
Oh my
for a
gosh.
day, it's obviously the plan is ruined, and so I may as well not even bother continuing.
Oh my gosh, that was me, Weight Watcher me, 100%.
Right. Rather than just, looking at that one day as a day and getting right back on it. So that part of this idea of 100% compliance to a plan is that that is not going to happen all the time, but you have the mindset to then, restart the next day and start up your habits right away again, rather than giving up entirely.
Right. So 5 days of being on, your goals is way better than 7 days off your plan because you're just mad that you can't comply every day. So, so some is better than none.
I also just want to interject here. Catherine sung the Q Bert theme song. It's just occurring to me that we were talking about weight loss being a highway, or getting on the snake weight loss highway, and that for me, weight loss is a highway, and I want to ride it all night long.
Oh gosh, I was hoping you'd go highway to. Or,
yeah.
Oh, and I just said a bad word.
Yeah.
Heck-a-doodle-doo. There we go.
I'm going to have to bleep that out. Highway to heck. Okay, so the next thing is, at this stage, keep in mind that you want momentum, not motivation. And motivation is fleeting. We've done episodes about how, grab a hold of motivation while you have it. But in the long term, that's not what's going to get it done, because, you only have, as a human being, so much motivation in your life. What you want to do is gain momentum with your habits. Really start doing the habits and start doing them consistently, and then, gain momentum with that until it's a snowball and turns into an avalanche, and you're doing all kinds of habits over and over again. Change your expectations about being ideal, because ideal days are in the minority, and long-term success takes grit and putting systems into place.
Oh boy, that is a really big one. And I know you talked about the avalanche, but what I was actually thinking about was riding a bicycle. It is effortful if you're on flat land.
Yeah.
You need to pedal in order to move forward. And that's at the stage that we're at right now. We're not just, we think about looking. I remember when I was a kid, I had an odometer. That's right. It was very fancy on my bicycle.
Wow.
And if I went downhill, I was like, I can ride my back 20 miles an hour. That's amazing. And then I would get to the flatland and just be like, I have to pedal. I hate bicycling. But that's where that effort comes in. Sure, there are going to be those motivation times where it feels speedy and it feels amazing. But the real progress mentally and physically happens when you put in the effort. This is going to be an effortful pursuit.
Yeah, and there are times when, just like Catherine said, there are times when I feel like I'm, pedaling downhill and I can do this forever and it's super easy, and then I'm like, oh well, this will always be this way, and then invariably some hill comes up in life and suddenly I find it difficult again, and it's not a continual straight line. This is all up and down. Right.
When it's easy, sure it's easy, but the real progress comes in when you put in the effort. So the next one is, and this is contrary to you and I, who have been married
almost 26 years.
Century.
We're coming up. We're barreling down on 26.
Barreling down on 26 is that you don't have to marry a plan. Your seasons will change. So we used to think of ourselves as, well, I'm doing Weight Watchers, I'm doing Atkins, I'm on this specific plan, I'm going to yoga class, I'm this kind of person. But when we identify as a person on a plan and say, for example, you can't afford to pay for Weight Watchers anymore, or your meeting location shuts down and now you can't go to it. If you go, well, that's proof that I just can't lose weight anymore. Or you're doing some sort of keto situation and then you have cake and go, well, I thought I was, Sally Keto or whatever, and now I guess I'm nothing. Who am I now because I'm not on this plan? Guess what? The plan is just the mode of transportation, and we can use another mode of transportation. If the bike doesn't work, we can skateboard, which I've actually done.
Yeah, I know.
On a actual skateboard.
I
don't
know. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, I was not good at it. I was good at going downhill on a slight slope down. But
also, your name was Kathy Keto, which it sounds a whole lot better than Sally Keto. It makes a lot more sense.
I don't like to be. No offense to our Kathy friends in the audience, but I'm Catherine. Gosh darn. But as the season changes, we are in a position now where we can adapt and go, oh, you know what? Before I was eating lots of salads every day, and now it's winter and it's cold and I'm not going to eat salad. I'm going to adapt and move to something else. That may seem like something really small, but we don't have to marry a specific thing. We can adapt to the seasons of our lives. And the more we see it as adapting to seasons, the more agile we are and we can adapt to different situations.
Yeah. And just before I move on, this could be as big as, you have a lot of indecision because you can't decide on a plan because you're afraid that if once you decide you can't change it.
Right.
This is part of it, is getting over that. And it can be lots of small things too, like maybe, eating 2 hard-boiled eggs for lunch every day, works for you for a while. And then 2, 3, 4 months of that goes by and suddenly you're sick of hard-boiled eggs and you're like, I don't know what to do now because I don't there's nothing else.
Yeah.
So it's keeping that adaptability in mind.
Well, and to put another point on it, say you're doing Weight Watchers and you get bored of it. You can try calorie counting. If you get bored of calorie counting on MyFitnessPal, you can move over to Lose It. So we'll talk more about various plans later. But anyway, I'll stop giving examples now.
All right. So the next thing to keep in mind is, before we used to think about it being too restrictive.
I hate that word.
Going straight to very low calories or cutting out giant groups of food like carbohydrates. But instead of restriction, think about showing restraint. Think about, you're not going to deny yourself all of the things you love and go into misery sadness mode. You're going to figure out a way to work things that you enjoy into your life, but at a more responsible pace, which is, involves the frequency, the amount, pairing it to certain things, certain times, we've talked about pairing, with a haircut. If there's something that you really love, but once you start eating it, you're going to eat the whole bag. Maybe you have one when you have a haircut so that it's not, a constant, fight with yourself. Well,
and that mindset thing of changing it from restriction is you're in trouble. It's a punishment. It happens in prisons or schools, where you've got it you're on restriction, blah, or there's Animal House. I don't know. But restraint.
That was secret double probation.
Oh, right. So showing restraint is sure, I want to eat the whole cake, but you know what? A sensible thing to do would be to have a slice, because I know that when I eat the entire thing, I feel sick and I have acid reflux and it goes against my values and my principles. So restraint is what grown-ups do. So that's what I have to say about that. And then the last one is letting go of one weird trick. We've talked about this before, thinking that there's some magic, protein powder or magic plan that is going to just whisk you off to the perfect goal weight. This is this part of the plan, this part of your journey is about putting in the effort, like we said, with the analogies of going downhill. It's going to take work, and it's also going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Change requires a little bit of tension, a little bit of discomfort. And that's where it came from. Discomfortable. We have to be discomfortable.
Discomfortable.
See?
I finally, it's been bothering me since we started the episode.
Discomfort is okay. It is okay to not feel like something is super duper easy. For me, when I started tracking calories, it maybe felt unfair. And oh my gosh, why do I have to do this? But we're going to talk about tracking in a minute. It takes a little bit of effort. And it is worth the effort because the return is invaluable. And after a while, sure, it like at the beginning it feels weird, but then it becomes normal. Just like any other thing you learn. You start out not knowing all the yoga poses. You start not knowing how to play chess. You start not knowing how to cook. It takes, like your brain is like, what's happening right now? It's okay to be uncomfortable because that's where we grow.
Yeah, it's very important not to give up just because at the very beginning that you're uncomfortable, and I have learned that lesson over and over again. Okay, so we are going to move on to the scale, and looking towards weighing yourself is very similar to the earlier parts of this, where we don't want you to look at the giant amount of weight you have to lose. And I'll tell you that this was one of the mental breakthroughs for me, was really just thinking about the next like 5 pounds ahead of me, or even 1 pound ahead of me, and focusing on that, and not really thinking about the whole 100 pounds that I felt like I had to lose, but just because really when you think about it, if you never lose that 100 pounds or whatever you have to lose, 50, 150, but you lose 5, you lose 10, you're still making a lot of progress, and it is still going to help improve your health and improve your movement and quality of life.
Well, and I remember too, when you had started out, you had lost maybe like 15 pounds, 20 pounds. And I remember saying like, oh my gosh, Donald, I'm so proud of you. You're doing such a great job. And you were like, well, don't be proud of me yet. I haven't lost 75 pounds yet.
Don't be proud of me yet. That's
and then,
right.
So I started saying, oh, I can't wait to be proud of you. I can't, I'm so looking I'm not proud now.
No.
Oh, no. Like, can you imagine doing that to anyone? Like, it just is not cool.
It was pretty funny. I don't know if the microphones are picking this up, but our neighbor downstairs has a bunch of men over, and they're singing happy birthday at the moment.
I think you might be able to have heard a little bit of it. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if we're going to keep that in or not. But yeah, no, be proud of yourself right now. You don't magically become proud of yourself once you hit a goal. It is important to celebrate every little success along the way.
So at this point, keep in mind that the scale is a reflection of your habits over time. It is not going to go down in a straight line, but if you are consistent with your habits, it will go down eventually. It's going to be more like a zigzag or a jigsaw. I started to say a zigsaw.
A zigsaw.
A zigsaw. It's going to look more like a jigsaw up and down than a straight line in one direction. And it might also be time to take stock of the non-scale things in your life
that is a really
that you
big
want
one.
to achieve. Like, what are the reasons that you want to lose weight? Is it just to look better in a pair of jeans, or to fit into a size that you have in mind? How about thinking about all of the things in your future, the movement, the not being completely out of breath when you walk up a flight of stairs, the carrying your groceries, playing with your children, playing with your grandchildren, still being able to enjoy all of the activities you want as you get older, going on those vacations, doing those conventions that you want to go to that are enjoyable. Really start thinking about like why you're doing this beyond just the number on the scale.
Well, because also, and this is a spoiler for maintenance, at some point you might stop losing weight, you get to your goal weight, and if all you're thinking about is that number of being like the sole identifier for your success, we're really missing out on paying attention to all the ways our lives have improved. We did an episode, I think our 100th episode was like about 100 ways that our lives improved from losing weight.
Yeah, it was all about non-scale victories.
And I think Donald's biggest victory was not being smothered to death by a pillow because of his snoring.
I stopped snoring when I got to a certain weight.
But that was all of those non-scale things of like, oh yeah, I don't snore anymore. Oh my gosh, I can like sit on an airplane and buckle my seat without being discomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all of those things add up. And I wish I had paid attention to that at the beginning, because all of that is really the big payoff. It's not just the number, it's the why behind it. So start making a list of those.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the food section of
Our
the
favorite
episode.
part.
That's right.
Favorite
Oh my goodness,
F word.
food is my favorite part of everything.
It is. So this is the part in the previous episodes we talked about just tracking. We talked tracking what you're eating and tracking, like adding more things, adding more vegetables, pumping up the volume, that kind of thing. But now we're going to actually talk about the discomfortableness of tracking calories.
Yeah, for a lot of people, tracking calories is their kryptonite, but both of us really strongly recommend tracking your calories.
Right. So whether you're tracking points or calories, please do it. It is so much more, like there are other ways to get it done. You don't have to track calories, but this is like tracking your financial budget or tracking like how many miles you have on your car to get an oil change.
Yeah, or even just like looking at your gas gauge. If you just kind of like feel how much gas you have left in your tank, like maybe you won't run out, maybe you can still like be okay, but chances are at some point you're going to want to look at that gauge to figure out how far you can drive before you need to fill up.
Right. And we get it with people with really serious disordered eating. Like, this is not for you. If this feels scary, please talk to a professional if it is really difficult for you. But for the average Joe who is ready to take this on, we really do believe that.
Or Jane.
Or Sally or Kathy or whatever your name is. But we find it so much easier than just guessing. Like, I know Donald talked a long time ago about a guy who just changed his habits and was like, well, I'm not going to track calories or anything. I'm just going to eliminate some things. And then he was disappointed after a year to only find he had lost, 25, 30 pounds?
Yeah, it was on a tech podcast that I listened to, of all things. He talked about losing weight, and I can't remember what the total amount of weight was, but yeah, he didn't get on a scale. He didn't track anything for a long time, and he did actually lose a decent chunk of weight, but he thought he had lost something like, 60 or 80 pounds, and it ended up being like 30 or 40, and yeah, was sort of mentally crushed by that at the end.
But that's illogical, because if you're not actually tracking anything and then you're disappointed that you just didn't randomly get more value out of it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So tracking is really important. We want you to, we're living in, what century is this? 21st century. Yeah. Thank you. Our daughter talked about us being born in the 1900s.
1900s. Yes. That was
very mean. Not kind.
Very mean. And she kept, holding on to the fact that it was true, but it's not
It doesn't mean it's kind.
Doesn't mean it's kind. 1900s. Exactly.
So we recommend using Lose It, our good friends at Lose It.
Yeah. That is the app that I use. I use Lose It. I paid for a lifetime membership for it.
Yep.
And I am using it daily.
Right, and I'm using our good old friend Fitbit, but there's also MyFitnessPal. So use one of those tracking apps. And again, with that adaptability, if it gets boring to you, it shouldn't be exciting. The exciting part of your day should not be tracking.
Right.
Like where do you get your kicks? Oh my gosh, tracking is so much fun. But if you get bored of one, try another one, see how it works. So that is what we decide to do.
Yeah, exactly. And something that we want you to keep in mind, tracking is not a punishment.
Nope.
And I understand, there are different things for different people that drive them crazy. I'm not particularly a fan of dusting, but I know if I don't do it, the dust is just still going to be there. So I have to sometimes do things that I don't want to do. But like we said before, tracking is just a way of, think about it like tracking your spending. It's hard to stick to a budget if you don't track your spending. And we've really gone in depth on tracking in a couple of episodes, more than a couple, but
with very grown-up titles, which Donald will now read to you.
Yeah, recently, our most recent ones, although they were over 50 episodes ago, the Count Tracula, episode 250, and Bride of Tracula, which is episode 251. And just to, not to get into the weeds, if you really want some pointers, tips on tracking, please go back and listen to those. I will link to them in the show notes. But really, tracking takes about 10 minutes of my day. Like, it really isn't that much time. I mean, maybe 15 if you like throw in the weighing of various amounts of fruit and things that I eat, but it really isn't that much time.
Well, and part of that too is like, this isn't about being fair. It's not fair that I have to track. It's not fair that like other people I know don't have to do it. When we compare ourselves to the world around us and just imagine that life would be so much easier, not tracking, even in maintenance, just letting you know, when I don't track, guess what? My portions get bigger and I gain weight.
Yeah.
And I actually surveyed about 15 to 20 members of Wolt Place. We only look thin place, people in maintenance or people who have lost a significant amount of weight. And one thing that they all had in common was that they even tracked during maintenance. It's not like you save $20,000 and then go, I saved what I wanted to save. Now I never have to look at what I'm spending again.
Yeah.
It is about maintenance. The word itself is about maintaining habits, not just walking away and saying that it's done. We don't need to worry. Like, it's not unfair that people with diabetes need to track their A1C levels. It's not fair or unfair. It is helpful. And we believe that tracking is helpful for staying on track.
Yeah. And conversely, though, we don't think this is the time when you're really just starting to track your calories and get a handle on it. We don't think this is the time to go that extra step. I know some of you are like, you know, the opposite, and you want to go straight to tracking your macros. And while we know that, you know, fiber and protein, etc., are very important, that's probably too much too soon for most people. So stick to calories for now. Wait until you're ready to level up to even think about trying to add macro counting to your day.
Well, and as an example to that, I read something early on that said that you should have 10 grams of protein with every snack. And I found something that had 9 grams of protein.
Right.
And it sent me into a dither. Like, I'm not even...
Like, what am I going to do?
No, but really. And then I was like, well, I
know.
can't have this because it's only 9. And like, okay, it's an 80-calorie yogurt. Like, it's fine. It's enough. So when, like, for us, we're just saying, if macros feel great to you, do it. But I know out of the gate, a lot of people just suggest, well, just track macros. It's super easy. I don't believe that. I think tracking calories is a much more straightforward thing to do when you're starting out.
And look, maybe I will pay for this in the long term. I'm not saying 100% that I won't, but I have never intentionally tracked a macro in my life. Like, I try and get a lot of foods with protein and fiber in them. But I don't actually care what the macros are. Like, I look at my total calories. I eat a well-rounded, at least in my opinion, well-rounded bunch of food. And it really seems to be working for me and my health.
Right. And we actually did an episode called High Satiety, where we talked about foods that definitely give you more bang for your caloric buck. So you can go back and listen to that. But sure, prioritize protein, prioritize fiber, prioritize fruits and vegetables. Those are all great, but don't get too rigid in your expectations when you're getting started. Okay, so a few points on tracking. When you can, measuring and weighing your food is really important. When you take what you think is a tablespoon of peanut butter, for me, it used to be as much as would not fall off the tablespoon was a tablespoon.
Right, exactly.
And that can be the difference of like 200 calories just by eyeballing.
Or I would eyeball mayonnaise. Like, oh, that's probably a tablespoon.
Big
mayonnaise
eyeballs.
Is so high calorie. But...
Right. So when you can measure and track, but don't get too hung up on absolute accuracy when you're going out to eat. If you're like, I had lasagna and I don't know how much it was, just generically. And like I said, we've done lots of episodes specifically on tracking, but don't get too overwhelmed by accuracy. It's more about consistency and like, hey, I had lasagna. Hey, this is what it is at Olive Garden. I'll just use that. It's fine. When you're at someone else's house and like, oh, well, I can't measure. Don't worry about it. Just track as best as you can, because it's more about maintaining the habit of tracking and paying attention than it is about like, well, this like minced onion is half a calorie. Like, don't worry about that. Focus on the big picture.
Exactly. And it's very similar to what you were just talking about with worrying about 9 grams of protein versus 10. Put something into your tracker, use whatever sort of the middle, if you're eating a homemade lasagna, just, use the middle lasagna category in your app, and not the super high, not the super low, and move on. Like, don't get hung up and stress about it too much.
And that is a really big thing of people going like, well, I hate this app because there's 5 lasagnas and I don't know which one to use. Do the average. If one's 900, one's 500, use the middle, 700, and walk away, and don't worry about it. We promise it is enough.
Yeah. So how do you figure out what your daily calorie goal should be?
That's a great question.
This is a big one. So we're going to give you a couple of options. And the first one is kind of what I initially actually did, which was I figured out where I was. I figured out how many calories I was actually eating, because I'm very good at fooling myself. And I really thought I wasn't eating nearly as much as I was. So one suggestion that we have is to track what you're actually eating. Don't put any judgments on it. Don't change anything at first, but actually figure out how many calories you're really eating in a day. Do this for at least 3 days. I would actually say do it for a week or even 2 weeks to really get a picture of what you're eating. And it can be really eye-opening. I was eating a lot more calories than I thought I was. I mean, really, 4,000 plus a day. And I really thought I wasn't, eating that much. And then once you figure out where you are with it, just reduce it by a few hundred calories. Start with that. And then once you're like doing that consistently, reduce it some more. And then keep going until you figure out, where you're actually going to lose some weight. And when I was at my heaviest weight, I didn't have to go straight down to 1,200 calories. In fact, I never did that. I didn't even have to go down to, 2,500 at the beginning to start. 3,000 or 3,500 was enough to move the needle at the beginning. And then as I lost weight, I had to reduce my calorie intake a bit more. But that's one way to go about it.
Exactly. Well, and I think too on that, idea is that a lot of times, and this was my whole adulthood, when I thought diet, the number 1,200 just came up. Like, oh, got to go to 1,200 calories.
Yeah, please don't ever go as low as 1,200. Like, I mean, you have to be a very small human for 1,200 to be your number.
Right. But for me, it was that feast or famine. And guess what? That is what got me to go off, quote unquote, diets for decades. It was that extreme deficit, that extreme rigidity. And then I would revenge eat because I was starving, or I would go off my plan. And it turns out eating as much as you can and still losing weight slowly is way better than starving yourself for 3 weeks and then running out of steam and, being exhausted and frustrated and then revenge gaining back, which is what I did for decades. So yeah, don't do it. That's what I have to say. Okay.
Extreme restriction. Don't do it.
Exactly. So, what I wish I would have done, again, this is from our...
Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, the other option for figuring out a calorie goal is
going to, and Donald will post a couple of links in the show notes. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, and if you don't know where the show notes are...
We recently found out that some people don't actually know what show notes are.
So the show notes are in the clever description of the episode that Donald includes, whether you're on a podcast app or on our website, if you click on the podcast, it'll give you the description of the episode. And then just below the description are helpful links that Donald references, whether it's to other episodes that we've done, products that we're promoting, or resources from the internet that we've gone to. They'll all be right under the description of the show.
Yeah, and if you can't find them in your podcast app, you can always go to our website. If you click on the title of any episode of the show, a page will open up that shows all of the show notes with all of the links and everything.
Right. So what I wish I would have done was to go to a website that would give me my total daily energy expenditure, TDEE.
Yeah.
And that is basically based on your height and your weight and your age and your activity levels, sort of generally. And this is, this isn't like electrodes up to your brain or whatever for you specifically.
It may not be 100% accurate, but these online calculators will give you a very solid starting point of where to go.
Right. So there is one on freedieting.com. The Fitness Chef also has one, so Donald will link those. But I went into a calorie calculator or a TDE calculator and put in the age that I was when I started my joint venture. So I was 42, I was 5'7", and I was 250 pounds. And again, this is where the oh my gosh, I guess I need to go to 1,200 calories because I'm on a diet. When I put in my information to the calculator, it actually said that my maintenance calories were about 2,200 calories a day, just to maintain my weight. Now, I was eating probably 3,000 to 3,500 calories a day.
Yeah.
And I was gaining. Guess what? That's why I decided to go and try to change my plan. But just maintaining my weight was available to me. Oh, I could eat 2,200 calories a day and stop gaining weight. That would be great. And that was pretty accurate based on what what I actually did was just start tracking my calories. But anything under 2,200 calories could be weight loss. It didn't have to be 1,200 calories. If I ate about 2,000 calories a day, which actually works, I ate about 2,000 calories a day and started losing weight. Now, as I lost weight, I needed a larger deficit in order to lose weight. But still, at this point, it's like 1,700 calories, maybe or so a day based on my activity to lose weight. So start there, go to a calculator, and just see what your maintenance is. Anything under that could yield a deficit. Start with 100 calories below your TDEE amount, and then go to 200 or 300 and see if you start losing weight. It doesn't need to be this giant deficit. Again,
well, and definitely don't go to a giant deficit.
No.
I know people get very excited and they're like, well, if the calorie calculator says 2,200, then if I eat 1,200, I'm going to lose the weight super fast. But that really just leads to binge eating, and it leads to slowing your metabolism down, etc. And over the long term, that just isn't going to work for people. Like, eating a reasonable amount of food so that you're not completely hungry all the time is really one of the keys to doing this for the long term.
Right. And two things. One, you don't have to eat at a deficit every day.
That's also
you
true.
Could work on deficit during the week and then maintenance on the weekends. You can swap it up, which is super fun. And I also wanted to present to you a new acronym.
Uh-oh.
NBD. No big deficit.
No big deficit.
NBD.
Okay. I was going to say no big deal, but that goes
tracking?
To show what I know.
NBD. And you'll confuse your friends and enemies. It'll be super fun for you. But again, no big deficit, you guys.
Exactly.
It's no big deal to track. No big deficit.
All right. So if you have questions about that, we've done some other episodes which has some deeper dives into calories, but which I'll link to a couple of them. But let's move on to the final segment of this episode, which is movement. And at this stage of your movement, last week we asked you to add some purposeful movement. This week we're asking you to level up and figure out a weekly goal or possibly a daily goal. And this isn't to say that you have to, like, the goal shouldn't be, I'm going to go to the gym and crush a 2-hour workout like 7 days a week. The goal is figure out something that you enjoy, that you want to work into your life. It could be steps, it could be yoga, it could be spin class, it could be time on a Peloton, it could be exercise videos on YouTube, it could be playing, it could be pickleball, it could be basketball, something that you really enjoy doing, and just figure out a reasonable weekly goal. Like, I'm going to do this 3 times a week, or I'm going to, let's say that your step count is 3,000 a day right now. Well, I'm going to go up to 5,000 a day at this point. Like, something reasonable, but you really set a goal that you intend to keep. And, build in the idea that real life is going to come up, but focus on consistency rather than intensity.
Right.
Focus on doing this at the number of times that you say you're going to do it. Rather than trying to, we've done episodes about coming in too hot. Like, people want to go immediately, like we said, down to 1,200 calories and immediately to, an intense, high impact workout 7 days a week. And we don't recommend that. Build up your intensity and your stamina over time instead.
Well, especially when, and I've heard a few people talk about this, about how they got a Peloton and they had a significant amount of weight to lose, and the classes are 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's either I do the 45-minute class or I'm a failure. And this one person that I was working with actually just had a Peloton collecting dust because it was too much. She couldn't keep up and she felt like a failure. And it's like, guess what? You can do the first 10 minutes of a class.
You sure can.
You do not need to do it all. Also, this is part of where the adaptability comes in, where say you love doing a daily walk, but then it's raining or it's snowing or you move and suddenly walking in the neighborhood isn't safe. You know what? That's okay. You're adaptable and you come up with different plans for different seasons. And it's okay to have generally thinking about being an active person. Oh, I can't do that today. I can do something else. I can walk at the mall. I can use a rebounder. I know we've talked about those a million times.
Yeah.
But it's not about that perfect score or the perfect class. It's thinking about yourself as an active person. And part of that comes into, we talked about on the last episode, thinking about NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which all activity during your day matters. Sure, you can do a 20-minute spin class or you can go for a daily walk at lunch, which are all great, but the total amount of activity that you get in your day from normal activities like vacuuming, going grocery shopping, washing your windows, doing laundry, getting up at work and going to someone else's office to talk to them about something instead of sending them a Slack message. Slack is a thing that new people do. I just used a modern new thing.
That's right. Yeah. No, I actually use Slack at work, believe it or not.
But really, at this point, seeing all activity that you get throughout your day as fitness related and burning calories really matters not only to your mindset as an active person, but it's also you're sneaking in calorie burn just by your daily activity. And when I frame it that way, it actually is oh, I'm going to go check the mail again. That's great. It's not here yet. That's activity. Those are steps. All of this matters. So that is super duper important.
Yeah. This is the point where you want to start thinking of yourself as somebody who gets calories in all the time. You set a microwave for a minute rather than noodling around on your phone for a minute. You pace back and forth, or you do some jumping jacks, or you do some squats or something, depending on where you are. But instead of trying to drive around the parking lot and finding the closest parking space to the store, you're happy that you find one that's far away because you know that that's going to get you more steps and burn more calories.
Well, and two, on the microwave side, if jumping jacks isn't your jam, guess what? Just doing a minute of housework, of tidying up, you got your tidy time.
Yeah.
Think of it as
tidy time.
That sounds terrible.
My goodness, that
I
does sound
regret
terrible.
saying that.
Yeah.
But part of all of this, and whether it is focusing on your mindset or the scale or food or movement is knowing at this point that you might have setbacks. And I know ending with setbacks might seem like a bummer, but it is actually really important to understand, like we said at the beginning, this is not a linear point A to point Z. We're going to be sidetracked by illnesses, emergencies, extra work that you need to do, maintenance on your house that comes in, unexpected X factors, twisting your ankle, which is something that happened to me the first time I started this, before my joint venture.
Yeah.
I used to let disruptions, I used them as proof that this just wasn't the right time to focus on my health.
Yeah, and like I would give up entirely rather than going into this. The reason we're asking you to expect setbacks is so that when they happen, you don't give up. This isn't an excuse to then quit entirely. It just means you have to think some more and come up with something else and keep going.
Right. And that adaptability is much more effective for long-term goals than quitting or never starting at all. Oh, you know what? We have family coming to visit in 3 weeks. So I'll start all of this after they leave.
Right.
And I won't do anything now because I don't want to have to stop for the disruption in my plan. Guess what?
Oh my goodness, there's always something in the future coming, and I would never start just use that as an excuse all the time.
After they leave, after the roof has been repaired, after our kids are out of school, once our kids are back in school, after tax season, once things settle down, never in the history of settle down has anything settled down. And working in what you can at any part of your joint venture is so much more important than waiting for that perfect and fictional part of your life where things settle down. We always have the opportunity to do something. If something comes up as a disruption, think of it as a pause, not a total cancellation. Think of it as, okay, well, I'm not getting in my ideal steps this week because people are visiting, but I can pick right back up right when they leave. After the vacation, I can pick up right where I was. Maintenance calories are always available to us. And guess what? Going back to the episode 1 habits of just adding positives is also always available to you.
Absolutely.
When we have emotional or physical setbacks or circumstance setbacks, it's part of a season, not again, proof that this just isn't meant for you. When we see ourselves as adaptable and capable people in any season of our life, that's where the real change comes in. That's where we don't see this as some magical finish line, but part of our lives, and thinking of ourselves, and we're going to talk about more of this in the next episode, thinking of our actual identity, not just the goal that we want, the end picture that we have, because this journey lasts our whole lives. And just because there isn't a finish line doesn't mean that daily investments, however we can make them, matter. Just like investing in your long-term financial goals, investing day by day in your health goals matter too. And we know that if we can do this, we started in our 40s, we're in our 50s or barreling down on our 50s.
Yeah, you're not there yet.
The
but
white
you will
hot
be soon.
light of 50.
Yeah.
There is always time to make a good choice for yourself. And we know, again, that if we can do it, you can do it too.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for investing some of your time to listen to this show. You can listen to the most recent 300 episodes of the show wherever you find podcasts, wherever you found this one. Or you can go all the way back to episode 1 on our website at We Only Look Thin. It is not behind a paywall, but it is, for some reason, all of the podcast platforms, they only let you upload 300 episodes, which we didn't know until we hit episode 301. But there you go. So if you want to listen to the early episodes, you can go back to our website, weonlylookthin.com.
Yep, and if you are at weonlylookthin.com, click on that link for Join Our Support Group to find out more about Wolt Place. We Only Look Thin Place is a Facebook-based accountability group for women. Sorry, bros. There used to be like a couple guys in the group, but it was just weird and they didn't really participate. And anyway, so sorry about that, but it's just for the ladies.
The ladies?
The ladies. And happy Women's
Month
of Ladies. That's
Yeah.
good. I couldn't remember what it was, so thank you.
Yeah, there was also Celebrate Women's Day pretty recently.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks for mansplaining Women's
I'm
Day.
mansplaining a Women's Day.
I'm
to
really
you, yes.
happy because I was like, for fun lady time or whatever. Our We Only Look Thin Facebook page is a great place for accountability and fellowship and support. I do weekly Zoom meetings. We do daily evening and morning check-ins, but in reverse order. Usually I start with the morning check-ins.
This week, we're doing evenings first.
Whoa, it's like breakfast for dinner.
That's right.
But we do daily check-ins. We have subgroups for areas of interest, including eating and the scale and getting in movement. So check it out. We have 2 subscription options, a monthly subscription option with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you. So check us out. We would love to have you there. It is super supportive, super kind, and I'm super proud of it. WeOnlyLookThin.com.
Lots of super things.
Super things.
And if you would like to interact with us in other ways, you can also find us on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram at We Only Look Thin. And we have an email address if you would like to get in contact with us, ask us a question, give us an episode suggestion. We've turned a lot of listener emails into episodes of this show. If you would just like to say hello and give us some compliments, we enjoy those sorts of emails too. And you can do all of that by sending us an email at weonlylookthin@gmail.com. Not at weonlylookthin, but you can send it to weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
Yep. And also, if you would do us the favor of showing us some love by going over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a review. Not only does it let us know that after all of these years, what we're doing is not only reaching new people, but being a big part of your life. It means so much to get those reviews coming in from the dark or light web, whichever part of the web that you're on. Head over to Apple Podcasts. It means really so much to us, and it helps other people find our podcast when they're looking for fun, super duper podcasts like ours.
Yep. And another helpful thing you can do is just tell somebody about the show. If you're face to face with somebody, if you're on a Zoom, on a call, you know how you talk to people, and it comes up, it would be really great if you would tell somebody about the show, give us a shout out. Or if you're on the interweb in a Reddit group, a Discord server, a Facebook group, something like that, and it seems appropriate to give us a shout out, we would really be grateful. It's one of the best ways in which the show grows.
Yep. So if you can't remember if NBD means no big discomfort or no big deficit, just remember that Donald and I
Why
are
can't it be both?
An
inspiration.
It's kind of discomfortable saying that.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.